Welcome to a new episode of Pop Kannon. We are your hosts. My name is Jordan.
I'm Robert.
I'm Joe.
Today we are discussing Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's right, it's the Disney Plus show starring Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. In my opinion, I thought it was a really good Marvel movie translated to film, whereas WandaVision was a tribute to TV of all eras and sitcoms. Falcon and the Winter Soldier feels more like a TV tribute to the MCU. But I thought it was really good, aside from a few things, which I'm sure we'll get into in this episode. But overall, really positive. Robert, go ahead. Your initial thoughts.
I like this show a lot. I feel like it really cements the reason why the Captain America trilogy in the MCU is the best trilogy in the MCU. I just feel like the filmmaking from each iteration has gone up, and then it's spread out over 6 hours in this iteration of it. And I think it just took the whole thing to the next level, like Captain America as a brand within now Marvel's MCU, but also like our regular universe. I feel like it feels different now. And I'm happy about that because Cap was my favorite character in the MCU. So I'm happy to just keep going because Anthony Mackie was cool. I think it was really good.
Yeah.
Joe, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought where WandaVision took Wanda and brought her to be the Scarlet Witch, I thought this did a really good job of bringing Sam from receiving the shield to actually seeing himself as Captain America, where I think we as an audience were very ready, but they did a good job of showing the character justifying it to himself, I guess. I agree with Jordan that this kind of felt like a long movie instead of a TV series. So I don't think they really made the jump to television as well as WandaVision did. Yeah. There was a lot going on with the different characters that maybe didn't pay off in very satisfying ways. I think that Sam's story was very well told. Yeah. So if nothing else, they stuck the landing, and that's great. Bucky's story was good, but it just, part of me wishes there was more for him, which I don't want them to have taken anything from Sam, but I think some of the other characters, and there's a ton of characters in this show that's only 6 episodes long, maybe we could have pared down some of those stories a bit.
Yeah.
But overall, I think there are a decent amount of shortcomings in the middle of the show more often, but overall it was a good time. It's a very well-made TV series of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we have our new Captain America. So
yes, we fucking do, dude. Yeah. Just right off the bat, because Joe said that, Anthony Mackie being handed that shield in Avengers Endgame, we all discussed that on a previous episode of Pop Kannon. That was a big deal, and we weren't really sure how they were going to handle that moving forward. There were so many questions, was he just Captain America then? And Robert, you were very passionate about this subject previously, saying the legacy of Captain America and what that means, Sam Wilson should be Captain America on the big screen.
Yeah. I feel like I said that it felt sort of like a downgrade to get a TV show first. But this is doing much like what WandaVision did, is bridging that gap that we wouldn't typically see in the film. It would be part of a quick recap or mentioned in references so that you knew kind of what happened in a movie, but this gives you the B arc that would be in the comic book, the actual, that I felt like a full volume from a graphic novel, basically, with Sam becoming Captain America at the end.
Joe, do you think having a TV show lessens that impact of him on the big screen being revealed as Captain America?
I don't think so. Especially now that we know they've greenlit a Captain America 4 starring Anthony Mackie. So just like Robert said, I think this was about Sam getting to that point, getting to be Captain America. And that's even an amazing beat is that final title card where they change the title of the whole show to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, which like honestly like it gives me chills like thinking about it just because like that was so good.
And like you said, greenlighting Captain America 4, now we could skip in that film the reboot aspect of it and we can get into the story. We don't have to we could get a little time like showing everybody, look, he's doing Captain America things to open, but we don't have to now have the full reboot in that movie. We've done it already.
Yeah. They also did a great job demonstrating like another point of this show is what does it mean to be Captain America, where like that's a lot of issues coming with it. Like this is like a problematic country.
They presented it as a lot less cut and dry than it initially appeared.
Yeah. And I do think they kind of blinked at the end, but overall like they were pretty unreserved in saying like, yeah, why would he want to be
right?
Why would he want to wear a flag and walk out as America's poster child? But that's always like the best Captain America stories are the ones where he's calling out that lie and saying like, I'm what they say the country is supposed to be, not what it really is, which is not those ideals.
Yeah. He's the ideal man.
Yeah. And I think like the inclusion of the Isaiah Bradley storyline like really demonstrated that beautifully. Like I loved Carl Lumbly's performance. He really brought like a lot of like a tragic anger to that character that felt completely justified. Which like that's like barely science fiction based on like the Tuskegee experiments and things that are drawn straight out of history.
They just changed the name.
Even like the Henrietta Lacks story.
Yeah.
It
was crazy.
His scenes were really powerful, and the final one with him and Sam, when Sam shows up at the end with the shield, like that made me cry. That scene moved me in such a way that I didn't expect it to.
Yeah.
But just the parallels that Isaiah had with Steve, my boys were they were trapped. They were behind enemy lines. I busted out. I went to go save them. I brought them back. And what did I get in return?
Yeah.
It's tragic, like you said, heartbreaking. And the performance was absolutely astounding. I was mesmerized by it. Martian Manhunter, which I didn't even realize until afterward.
Yeah.
Like there was a point where I was like, I think it felt like he was just a real person. It felt like Isaiah Bradley was a real guy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a performance, and that's not an actor. Like that's how legitimate he made all of that feel. He expressed all of it very, very effectively.
So I'm really glad that you brought up character and feeling like a real people, because I feel like that's something this show did really well, was make each and every single one of these people feel like actual people, not just characters with one layer or two of motivation or depth or whatever. Like it's nice to be able to live in a room with these two characters or three characters and just listen to them talk. And it's like engaging. So that's a testament to the writing.
When you get to Bucky, you forget that he's all of the things that he is, I felt like, until he has to rip the sleeve off and use it. He's a completely different person. And it's so interesting to watch him go back and forth between it. Because when they go to Madripoor and he has to pretend to be the Winter Soldier still, there's like this sick enjoyment on his face, but also you could tell that he's like, I really don't want to do this, but I think he doesn't want to do it because he likes it so much.
It's familiar to him. So it's like
how easy it is.
Within
just
that
be like,
familiarity,
"Oh, that's
there's like a
comfortable
comfort.
again."
Yeah.
And he like lets loose on them too. Like he doesn't hold back. And when he walks away, like Sam is standing there and he just like looks at him like, "You okay?"
Yeah.
Like, I saw your eyes, dude.
I think that's also like a commentary on how easy it is to fall back into past habits and how easy it would be for someone to succumb to something that they tried to get away from.
Because if he had fallen back into it at that point, you could blame Zemo for exposing it to him again, basically. And that's also, if you wanted to try to find the parallel in that, like an addiction cycle or something like that. Like that's definitely one of those things. So they could have, but
it also goes to show that Bucky like has evolved.
Yeah.
You know, he's definitely changed from who he was. And this show is a good look into that and his psyche.
Because we get that sequence of him from 6 years ago in Wakanda around the fire.
Yeah.
And it's like, it seems like it's like the final test or something like that. So we see him sitting around the fire and Ao starts to recite the words to him.
Yeah.
And there's like, they give us like the gifts of Vietnam flashback, like all of the things that have happened to him, like start like flooding through his face. And it's just like, he plays that so insanely good. And it's like really effective because he's like crying at the end and then he doesn't turn after all of the words have been spoken and she says, "You are free." And he just starts like crying. Like it's such a moment of, he's just overwhelmed emotionally.
Yeah. I mean, that scene was phenomenal.
Yeah. And I think the "You are free" thing is like, it adds like another layer of tragedy because he's deprogrammed, but he's still got this trauma that he doesn't know what to do with. Structuring his relationship with Sam around that was really good to me because it's almost like sad in a way that like Sam always lives for other people. Like he's always helping other people.
Yes.
Even when it like seems like he's doing something for himself, like it's for his sister and his family. And like you kind of see that start to weigh on him where he's like kind of like, "Bucky, I don't have time for your shit right now because I'm trying to deal with my own.
All of my buckets are full, bro. You gotta find
but he'll never say that because of the person he is.
Yeah.
And especially him helping Bucky through his trauma. Like I do wish we saw more of Bucky like working through that, and like maybe if he stayed in New York a little longer, or like came back for a scene or two.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely, of all of the main characters, somehow Bucky got less than I feel like everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it felt like Bucky was very underdeveloped, considering how much Sam got. Yeah. But I feel like this is Sam's show more so than it is Bucky's.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because Bucky's like, and I hate when shows or movies do this, but like when a character will literally say, "We don't have time for that right now. We'll come back to that later." And then they go do something else. Yeah. Like Bucky's story got shelved in episode 2, and then we picked it up in 5 and then kept going.
Yeah. Yeah, in episode 2, they go into the therapy appointment, which is also the last time we see the therapist until the very end.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he has that like little outburst that was like, "Oh, like if he was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me." And it feels like that was a great scene, but it feels like it could have been later in the series and built to more. Like have them at odds more until you get there.
Because I wanted to ask about that scene, because initial viewing of it and then my second time through it, I'm confused as to what that question is. Like, if he was wrong about you, I thought his motivation would be like, why didn't he think I could be Captain America? But instead he's worried about what Steve's opinion of him was. And I was just like, is he still, like, I felt like he should be beyond that at this point.
I think it's that conversation they had in the Quinjet in Civil War, where it's like, that wasn't you, and he's like, but it was. So like he's still dealing with that trauma and trying to make amends for what he did as the Winter Soldier, and trying to separate Bucky Barnes from the Winter Soldier.
So is he saying that he's like, is he trying to determine if Steve was wrong for feeling like he was redeemable?
Yeah.
I think he's inferring that, like, if Steve was wrong about giving you the shield and your judge of character, then that means he was wrong about me and giving me a second chance.
Right.
Okay. Because, like, to Joe's point, had that been built slightly more and we maybe get that interaction in like 3 or 4, maybe it feels different and it's more understood what his intention of asking it was. And I think part of the issue with that isn't, he's not saying anything specific. You know what I mean? He's asking with general pronouns, and he's not saying, like, if he was wrong about you being this, like, he didn't put forward the full thought. And maybe they were like in the writing room like, well, we don't need to say it again. But I feel like in that moment we probably should just reiterate what the question we're asking really actually is for his character, because that's like his whole genesis of the rest of the show.
Yeah. And I think you are supposed to think or question whether Bucky actually wants the shield or not up until because episode 5 is when he says, like, when Steve told me what he was planning. So like, it's confirmation, one, that he knew Steve was leaving,
doing that,
and I assume there was a conversation about whether or not he wanted to go, but yeah, that he knew that Sam was the one to inherit the shield.
And it gives a lot of credit to Steve, not like knowing the future, but kind of somehow able to foresee, like, no, Buck, you're gonna have to stay here. He's gonna need you. Like, this isn't gonna be easy for.
I honestly feel like Steve would have offered, like, do you want to go with me? And Bucky maybe feeling some responsibility of, like, I have to fix what I've done.
Okay.
Or I gotta make amends, or like, I have nothing to go back to necessarily.
I felt like it would be more Steve turning him down, because Bucky just being immediately down to just keep going with Steve forever.
Yeah.
Because not being with Steve weighs on him super heavily also. So it's like,
the thing is, he never reunited with Steve, really. Like, by
he
the end of Civil War, he goes to Wakanda, and then they fight in Endgame. They don't get to be brothers or whatever again.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he blips.
Right.
And then when he comes back, he's immediately in a gigantic fucking battle. There's not really a lot of downtime before Steve is old and on a bench.
Right.
So,
well, even Bucky made a comment about that, saying something along the lines of, like, I went from war after war after war. Like, it's just never ending. So, like, you could tell that weighs on him.
Yeah. And he does a great job of, like, I feel like portraying the PTSD of all of that.
Yeah.
Because he's actively dealing with all of it, so he doesn't necessarily try. Sometimes he's like, fight first when they're in the warehouse, and he just wants to run up on those 2 guys, and then he finds out there's like 10, and he's like, okay, you're right, okay. You know, he's not necessarily, because Steve's the tactical guy. Like, Bucky's not. Bucky's like point and shoot. You point him at something and he kills it for you, no matter whether he's Bucky or fucking Winter Soldier.
I think they also did a good job reminding that Steve wasn't perfect. Like, he might have been perfect in appearance, but like he was a nice guy, but he had no idea what it was like to be a black man in America. And like, I love that line too, where he apologizes and says, like, I didn't know and I couldn't have known.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting too, because everyone else in the series is viewing Captain America as like a symbol.
Yeah.
Whereas Sam and Bucky are viewing him as an actual person, because they're the ones that knew him. They're the ones that were closest to him.
Right.
So everyone else, like John Walker, for example, is really just making it about the symbol of Captain America.
Yeah. And I think Wyatt Russell did such a fucking good job, dude. Holy shit. Especially on rewatch. For 3 episodes, he's genuinely trying to extend the olive branch to them. Genuinely. And a little bit towards the end, it's more like, all right, because he wants all of Steve's props because he feels like he needs them, and he calls them.
He also feels like he's entitled to them.
Yes, and that's
I'm Captain America.
It was the wording. It was the wording in the truck where Sam says it's always the last line. You know, he's like, I need his wingmen.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care about you. I'm not like here for that interaction. I just I need the guys that he had. How could I do this fucking job without them?
Yeah.
And Sam's like calling him out on that bullshit. I think pushes John to like, all right, well, what if I just like take charge of the 2 of them and think like that'll work, you know, because Steve was a general, you know, or whatever the fuck, like he thinks that maybe they'll just like fall in line.
Yeah, he like doesn't know their rapport.
Yeah,
necessarily.
Yeah. So, and there's specific things that he says where it seems like he really like wants to try to befriend them or something like that, and then he's like, but he's too quick to be a hothead, and he's way too quick to have a smart mouth. And every single time he does one more line, it costs him every single time.
So I think with him, I really loved John Walker at the beginning, and not necessarily because of his actions, but just because he was given this task, right?
Right.
He was given this insurmountable task of being the next Captain America.
Yeah, they were like, be America's mascot, but also we're going to use you as a weapon.
But he also just, like, when he thinks about Captain America, like, he thinks a soldier. And he's a soldier, so, like, he's just going to do what he's always done. He's in there to do a mission, you know? He's tactical. He's not thinking of anything but the mission. And that's not necessarily his fault. And I think just the position that he was put in from the beginning was very unfair.
Yeah.
It's just how he continuously handled things that
it's just a situation that spiraled out of control with him. Like, and it sucks that it happened that way.
I do think Wyatt Russell did an amazing job. The performance was fantastic, but I fucking hate John Walker. And from the moment I saw him, I knew, we all knew it was going to come to blows by the end. But when he's in that locker room the first time, well, not the first time we see him, but the first time we get to meet him, Lamar says you can't punch your way out of situations anymore. And I was like, that's the type of person you are. So all the stuff with him, trying to be the nice guy in the beginning, that's him trying to be someone he's not. That's not his first instinct to do any of it. And he is just a violent guy by nature. And I know that I said I wish that we got less of some characters, but I wish we got more of what their history was, because they kept sideways, it was a very cheesy line.
They kept talking about what got him his 3 medals of honor in Afghanistan, but they never said.
Yeah, and they the very cheesy line of what we had to do in Afghanistan.
Yeah. When we meet him in that locker room, he's basically actualizing all of the reasons Sam is hesitant to take up the mantle after being given the mantle. He's giving you what all of these issues are going to be, but then there's the entire piece of the puzzle that he's missing, which is that he's not black. So he has all of that struggle with it, and he's talking about it, and those are all things that Sam grips with throughout the rest of the show. And then, but also Sam's black. He doesn't even realize the amount of less weight that's on his shoulders being Captain America just because he's John Walker and not Sam Wilson.
Yeah. For Bucky, there's the initial infuriation of just him pretending to be Steve, and then a very good edit is when he's on Good Morning America, and he says he thought of Steve as a brother, and they cut to Bucky just like staring at him like he was his literal fucking brother. And you just said that on national television about the guy you never met.
Yeah.
But like honestly, like I said though, I don't necessarily disagree with him. It's just every time he was ever in a situation, he just kept making
The wrong
wrong choice
Yeah.
constantly.
That's what bad people do.
Yeah. But he's like Bucky in the sense of you point and shoot
Yeah.
him at someone. So in every scenario, he's going in there thinking it's a crisis, thinking I need to be Captain America, so I need to be turned up to 11.
Yeah,
But then
he thinks that title allows you to throw your weight around.
Yeah.
And Steve, while he kind of threw his weight around, did it in a way that was like gentle. And John Walker is kicking doors in going, I'm fucking Captain America and you're coming with me. Like he thinks that means like he's literally being Team America World Police. Because that's what he thinks Captain America is.
Yeah.
But then you frame that differently with Sam, and the way he approaches situations is he's always in there calm. He goes in there low energy. He wants to talk. He just wants to
Sam
work
de-escalates
things out.
every situation in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. At every chance he gets.
Even after Karli Morgenthau, terrible name, even after she blew up the GRC building with people inside, he still doesn't want to go attack her.
Yeah.
He's still trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, and he's still trying to go like, if we can not crack this egg, we can save her life. And he's trying to do that, and nobody will fucking let him.
That part to me is a little bit of Sam trying to be more like Steve to me, because in Winter Soldier, he says to Cap, like, what if you're wrong about him and you can't save Bucky? Like the guy who like now is fighting by his side, and like he was like putting it on the table, like, what if we have to take him down? And like Steve kind of demonstrated to him, right or wrong, that like, you know, in some cases, I guess you can just be headstrong about something that you believe you're right about.
Steve was operating on faith and betting that his relationship with Bucky will supersede the programming.
Right.
Like, because it happened first in his brain, it should be in there deeper, and that's what Steve was betting on.
Right. So to Sam, he's like, well, if, you know, he can talk a KGB programming out of a guy,
right,
I can probably handle a teenager.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And as far as Karli, though, like, her character just didn't work for me at all. Yeah, I just wasn't a fan.
She was another Marvel villain like Killmonger who was like, you're making a fantastic point, so we have to have you commit an atrocity so that the audience will be okay with you dying.
Doesn't like you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it takes a really long time to figure out what she's actually doing.
They didn't have like an actual end game to their plan.
No,
it felt like
it just they needed somebody else. They like tried to operate this like two villain dynamic where you don't see one, so she's doing all of the work. But it just like, I don't know. It seemed like they were really nervous about some things that like probably weren't that big of a deal. Like,
no, I don't think so
at
all.
The whole tractor trailer set piece happens because she steals vaccines for people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like they're really gonna fucking fight and kill each other over that part of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're really gonna send Captain America to deal with a stolen truck.
Right.
I really thought the Flagsmashers fight was legitimized, and like one of the things we said with the opening of the Monica Rambeau episode of WandaVision was like we were like happy to see fallout from the blip.
Yeah.
And like especially in this series, like we're seeing like the global ramifications of that going forward. Like it's not just a thing that happened. Like this is there's consequences to that.
I don't think that they described the issue enough.
They never actually showed what like
the issue was.
her ideal world looked like. which I
Right.
feel like that was part of a reason why it was hard for the audience to get into her mindset and see like, oh, that makes sense that she's killing
So you
people
think there
over
should
it.
have been like a flashback scene like to during the blip?
I
or?
think so. I think that
Yeah.
would
Or-
have helped.
Or at least like she runs a commune and she's like the mom of the commune or something. Because we don't know, like, first of all, they have an app. And everybody can hack Sam's technology, but we can't figure out where the fuck this app is hosted. But they have an app that just is like, apparently everybody in the park is a terrorist, and that's fucking like really weird to me.
Well, I mean, they got a notification to gather there. It wasn't like they were just like out enjoying.
No,
their
I
day.
know, but like they all were like kind of sitting there like, oh, I'm gonna go feign a picnic and wait for the signal, which is just an absurd way to live your life. So a lot of those people were just like NPCs and they're not real. I'm here in the park for the thing, and like you're like, oh, what's the thing? And you talk to the next person. But like, I just feel like they never fully defined like what the full blown like they say that the people that came back, so immediately after everybody disappeared, everybody was kind of like kumbaya around the world, I guess is what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
And that we were all coming together after a massive
like
tragedy.
to an extent, like borders fell and like, you know,
They just were one world, one people. That was the catchphrase, was one world.
And then like people were taking over homes that were empty.
yeah.
And then when people came back, people were like, that's my house. I was gone for 5 minutes, and they don't realize they were gone for 5 years. So this multinational global thing is created to try to figure out what to do with them. And I guess they're putting them into camps
Yeah.
or areas that are abandoned or something. And I don't know. I just like, it was hard to feel bad for them because you don't really see like what was the problem. You know, like we never really like live among them to see them struggling, to be like, oh my God, these people need help so bad. I see why she's doing all of this.
For me, it wasn't hard to imagine from what they told us. But I will concede that I like having a scene of it would have benefited.
Yeah.
That's why I said like having a scene even of like, oh, when everything was great and what we're trying
Right.
to get back to, like show
Right.
them and then even show immediate fallout of people starting to come back from the snap. You know,
how it ruined all of that.
I do think having the like happy, cheesy GRC commercial and then cutting to the armed troops with GRC on their backs demonstrated like, oh, this is fucked up.
Yeah. But I just didn't know what they were doing. So when she blew them up, I was like, wait, isn't she trying to help those people? Like, I just was so confused at what her motivation was and who it was directed at. Because it just seemed like we didn't know who any of the players were that she was fighting against until all of our colorful people show up to try to stop her, you know? Because then once we try to stop her, it's a completely different game. But, like, what is she doing the whole time? Like, what is her plan?
I think
You know,
in the beginning, she is just trying to stay out of the GRC's way while like getting and helping her people. But then once people started getting in the way, she made a decision that it's going to have to end in a fight because that's the way it always seems to end.
and Zemo was right about her.
In a way, yeah.
He flat out was just like, you can't redeem her because she's a supremacist now, and like once she's willing to take lives, she's lost. And everybody's like, well, let's not press the gas too hard on that, Zemo. And then at the end, he's like, the only way that it's going to be solved is if you kill her, and they have to. That's the only way to stop her was to kill her. But before she gets killed, she has openly acknowledged and accepted the fact that she's probably going to die there.
It wasn't the only way. It was just that people kept getting in the way of Sam solving it his way.
Yeah.
Like the series could have ended the Flagsmashers halfway through if John Walker wasn't in that stupid fucking building.
Oh my God, dude.
And like one last note about John Walker is just like that he writes his own story for himself to to fit his own reality. Like when he kills the Flag Smasher, and he just on the spot decides he's the one that killed Lamar, even though he was there and he watched that's not what happened. And he goes and tells Lamar's parents about it. It would have been a nice scene if he wasn't fucking lying to them.
No, but that's it. That one is like barely an allegory to like we create a narrative based on the end result and not like what happened.
Yeah,
you know, and like John Walker, like in front of he had to find the best excuse that he could come up with for brutally murdering that person in front of everyone.
Yeah,
was he killed my partner.
Yeah,
he killed my partner because like how. You can only imagine how many times in real life somebody's been like, "Oh, I shot him because he was going to kill my partner."
Yeah,
you know, like because John Walker is like the ultimate embodiment of Back the Blue. You know, so like
his thin blue line shield.
He is the thin blue line, John Walker. I feel like they did such a good job of not ever saying that, but you just feel it with how that character plays and simmers the entire time. Is like you just like, man, he's probably a fucking prick,
and he got off easy in the end too.
Like
I hated that.
I didn't think he needed to be in that final episode at all, and like it didn't play for me to have him like
helping
or like joking around with Bucky. Like the Lincoln quote.
Arms and shit. Yeah.
I'm like,
they should have just left him be a villain. They should have let him set up for U.S. agent and take off, because they built that character in such a way where he was on a path where he was just making decision after decision, and he was committed to the thing that he was doing.
And the fucking whiny scream when he's fighting over the shield and he screams at Bucky, "Look what you're making me do." And I'm like, what the fuck? It's like the classic abuser line.
Dude, literally. They built that character in such a way where he was on a path where he was going one way, and then all of a sudden they were just like, you know what? He's going to have a redemption story in the final episode.
Yeah, and it's like really weak anyway. But when he's fighting Sam and Bucky, when that all finally breaks down and he's already taken the super soldier serum, and they like he did such a good job, I feel like, of becoming unhinged after he did it.
Yeah.
His body language was different. Even he was standing just like his arms were kind of hanging at his sides, like he was just like primal almost.
Yeah.
And I love the way that they shot that sequence too, with those camera angles. They were super tight, and like it was really a good way for the actors to show way more expression, I thought.
Yeah.
To convey the emotion that they were doing.
And I remember watching that episode for the first time and then texting you guys like, dude, he's such a bitch, his arm broke. He ain't Steve. And then Joe reminded me that Steve's arm broke in Endgame, but he was fighting like an 8-foot tall fucking alien. And John Walker was fighting Sam Wilson, who never took the serum and will never take the serum.
He had a jetpack though.
But the jetpack, he used the propulsion of the jetpack
to break his arm.
Snap his arm.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, Sam.
That was awesome.
It's just an idol, bro.
Sam's fighting style in the whole show, like the way they incorporate the wings and everything, was really great.
He uses them as like a bulletproof shield, and then he also sweeps Batrock's legs out with them.
He uses them to brace. He does so much stuff.
Yeah, he fucking stands up on them and shit. My favorite use of the wings, other than the flying, obviously, is when he is fully Captain America and he's on the bridge and he saves that one person, and he uses the wings and the shield on top of his head to complete like the dome that he makes for himself. The helicopter fucking bounced off of him and made that boink. And I was like,
it's all
there's
vibranium,
no greater explanation of vibranium, I think, than that.
Everybody gets vibranium. It is very funny that like Bucky hands over Zemo and then he asks for a favor after like he basically told Io "fuck you" for the past 2 days.
He knows she loves him though.
Yeah.
She can't help but love herself some White Wolf. Kind of like he was hitting on Sam's sister Sarah a little bit. Hey, I'm Bucky.
Bucky just likes to hit on people.
Yeah. He also was doing it to get under Sam's skin.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great. Sarah was fun. She was a fun character.
I did like Sarah, and like the dramatic comedy of her calling while they're in in the bad guy's headquarters.
It was like one of those Geico commercials.
Yeah.
It
Mom!
made me so mad.
Your father's fighting the squirrels again.
Why wouldn't Sam turn his phone off? That's such a rookie mistake.
He's
That's
never
such-
been.
I mean, he's not.
He's not a spy.
He's not a spy, and he's not necessarily a rookie. Like, he did some shit with Steve, but Steve was always like, we go in there, we're gonna fucking do this, and this is what's gonna happen. And that's because Steve just tries to, he has to plan everything out.
He had to wear a disguise that wasn't a baseball hat and sunglasses.
I could see how that would throw him off, dressing like a South African pimp or whatever he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Smiling Tiger, is that what the name
he's
of
a
it was?
Black Panther villain.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That whole nightclub sequence was just like, I mean, it was funny and it was meme worthy, but I don't know that it necessarily was like necessary or.
Yeah, Madripoor, like it was kind of just like we're doing it to do it.
Yeah.
Unless like we had, I remember when we were texting about it when we watched it the first time. Unless we had to go to Madripoor just to set up the existence of Madripoor to lead to somebody else potentially debuting in or around Madripoor.
Everybody's favorite mutant, Patch.
Well, it feels like to me they use Madripoor just to set up the mythical power broker.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I hate that choice for Sharon.
Yeah. It was
like,
pretty weird. It's pretty weird.
Like, they should have just put the words on the screen, she's the power broker, because like it was so fucking obvious. You might as well have been like, you know, when you see text on screen that says New York when we're clearly looking at the New York skyline. Like,
well, I don't know, Paris.
She was the only person like on her cell phone the whole movie or the whole show. She's clearly the person that they're talking about.
I think they had to make her a little sketchy just to like justify it in the end, because if she was just like normal Agent Carter the whole time and then they like pulled that twist out of their ass, it would have really pissed me off. So like at least like showing it throughout was fine. It was just like you don't
like the decision.
I don't see why that character would betray her morals so hard.
Right. I feel like it would have been more effective to show people talking to the power broker on the phone.
Yeah.
And then showing Sharon talking on the phone other times and never like necessarily telling you that those two things are the same.
Yeah.
Because it almost seemed like when you'd see somebody talking to the power broker, Sharon was like on the other line. Like, and I don't know. I just feel like I feel like it would have been better if at the end she shoots Karli and she's like, you really disappointed me. Like, if we got it at that moment, it would have been like, oh, she's the fucking power broker, as opposed to like saying power broker, having an episode called Power Broker, and we see Sharon throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like the decision to withhold it from any of the main cast. Like,
Yeah.
it was really meaningless by the end because it was just a twist, but then Sam comes in after the fact.
Yeah. And it's like we spend time with Sharon doing that, and we spent time with Karli doing what she was doing, but had we like just decided to go with giving all of the FaceTime to the Flagsmashers and having the power broker be this overarching thing that we twist at the end.
Yeah.
It would have given everybody more time, and then you would have been more like, what the fuck, going forward for Sharon, as opposed to when she walks out on the phone again, telling some random person that, oh, we're going to have state secrets to sell and all this other shit. You know, everybody was kind of like, ugh.
And like, where does she pop up again? Cap 4?
What movie's going to be set in like DC that's going to even matter? It's probably going to be another Disney Plus show first, I would imagine.
I feel like it has to be.
Unless like She-Hulk or something. I don't know.
She-Hulk or Hawkeye, because Hawkeye takes place in like the West Coast, right?
I don't know. I thought it was
who's
New
to
York.
say they don't announce something called
Yeah.
Power Broker? You know? Like,
Oh God,
I don't think they're gonna do that.
that would be a gross misallocation of funds. I feel just based on the reaction to that twist, anyway.
wouldn't be the first time.
Moon
that's
Knight
true.
would be an interesting place for her
Yeah,
because he's like a mercenary and everything.
yeah.
So we talked about pretty much everyone aside from Zemo. What
Yeah.
did you guys think bringing back Baron Zemo?
I thought it was great because like we all love the actor, and like
Yeah.
it's really refreshing to see the villains survive, not be killed off at the end, even though like the main villain of the series was killed off, but to see them be able to come back. And I think
Yeah.
like with Walker and Zemo and the whole thing with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, they're setting up Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers. So seeing Zemo come back for that would be really awesome. The retcon of him being like a Baron like he is in the comics was a little jarring for me at first.
Yeah.
Like it was fine once I like accepted it, but it was just, if he had all this money, I feel like he would have been able to get his family away a lot further. But I guess the insinuation was that he wasn't aware of what was going on in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, and then it kind of just happened.
Yeah.
Because they kind of just go to Sokovia in Age of Ultron, like at the beginning.
Yeah.
It becomes a larger issue as the film progressed.
Right.
So it wasn't like, I don't know, that many people had that much time or thought that they would have to leave. You know, they didn't anticipate a robot putting a fucking thing in the ground and blowing their fucking country up. I didn't have a problem with the retcon at all. And I didn't even necessarily take it as a retcon, because there's nothing to say that he's not potentially a rich person in Age of Ultron and Civil War or whatever.
It's just something that I feel like in real life would have been brought up at some point.
And they also never explain the mask.
Yeah.
No, they
He
don't
just picks
explain
that up
mask.
and puts it
Yeah.
on, and like it's cool to look at. But why did he have that?
Yeah.
He's like, this is what I wear when I commit crimes.
There was no story purpose for it, and
Yeah.
That's just 100% fan service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think maybe they needed it because every person in the show has to wear something covering their face so all of the action can happen.
Fair.
Because Karli Morgenthau, that we have to say her last name every time that we talk about her, because it's so fucking easy to say and not weird or whatever.
That's a character from the comics too, though. So
Oh, that's great. But Jesus Christ, dude. They said her name so often, and every time she got into a fight, she put her hair back, which is realistic, and then she had to slide the mask on so that the double could take her place and do all of that work.
but it was also usually John Walker saying her name, and he has such a fucking annoying voice,
Ugh.
so that doesn't help.
Karli Morgenthau. and then just quickly speaking about people who were digitally replaced in the fucking show, Sam's training sequence with the shield. It's so blatantly obvious that that's a different person. Like
He does the flip.
like doing the flips and stuff, it's clearly someone else's face. And there's like an extended point where he kind of does like a couple things in a row, and it's just another man. Like they don't even put Anthony Mackie's face in there. They just let that ride. And I was like,
interesting.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
like they could have cut around it a little better, but
especially for a fucking training montage, dude. We don't need to see the entire extended movement. It's a training montage. We know what they are.
yeah.
The training montage played silly for me because it's like, okay, Sam's athletic, that's great, but they only showed him like throwing the shield and like flipping. They didn't really show him like doing anything else, any
Fighting.
other kind of combat training.
Training how to
just-
use a jet. Well, I mean, he's an expert in the jetpack.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say.
By this point, I guess. I don't know. So it just felt like a leap for me to believe that he's all of a sudden well equipped to just handle this shield and like have an entire fighting style with the wings with the shield.
Yeah. But there's two montages in that episode. That was the second one. The first one was fixing the boat.
That one I didn't have a problem with.
No, because it was fun. It felt like an 80s movie. There was a song. They were talking about the mission. They're turning wrenches and shit together. And I was just like, I wonder if there's anybody who does boat repair that watched this show and was like, it's all fucking bullshit. You would never do that.
I'm always a sucker for the casual superpower stuff too. Like when Bucky shows up and he picks up the engine block, or like Sam's working on the boat and he just rips off the panel.
He went down and he grabbed the wrench to give it like the ultimate amount of torque.
He didn't even use his metal arm.
No.
Or even like that last scene with Isaiah when he picks up that giant pot and like they don't focus on it. He just does it while he's talking.
It's huge.
Yeah. And like that's just like such nice like flavor for me of like adding that to the world.
Because like they're accomplishing a task, but like that character would do that.
Yeah.
You know, like they don't.
Bucky would use his arm for everything.
Yeah, well, not everything because he's not left-handed. I like that line that he said too. That he's right-handed, so he doesn't always think to use the Winter Soldier arm.
Yeah, that was cute.
Imagine having that, this crazy space age technology, and you're like, oh yeah, I could open jars and shit. Like I imagine Bucky in his apartment that doesn't have a bed because he sleeps on the floor, holding a pickle jar with the metal hand and trying to twist a fucking.
I think that was a PTSD thing, the sleeping on the floor.
Yeah,
that was like a callback to Sam and Steve's first meeting.
Yeah,
in Winter Soldier.
I liked it though because you see it. He like wakes up in a cold sweat, but he's like on the floor and he's got some shit on the TV, but he doesn't care. He's not looking at it.
Just have noise.
What was everyone's favorite episode? For me, it was 5. It was Truth, because that's where the immediate fallout from John Walker killing that guy happens. Yeah. And that scene for me was one of my favorites of the whole show. What about you guys? Episode is there one that stands out?
I think I liked episode 4 the best. Like getting John Walker to do that. In the notes that I took for this, episode 4 has like the most information. It's like 3 full scrolls on my phone. And everything else is kind of like a couple paragraphs and that's it. But yeah, episode 4 just was so chock full of stuff. And I like bookended with I didn't necessarily like episode 3. That's the one I have the least information for because it was like a lot of filler with the containers and all of that shit. Yeah. But yeah, episode 4 for me was my favorite. And getting that like initial battle with all of them. And I think that's even the one where Sam has that conversation with Karli.
Yeah.
And that for me was such a huge moment in the show, was that Sam actually having the opportunity to at least try to do what he wanted to do, and for all intents and purposes was working. Like it seemed like it was actually going to work until fucking John Walker came through with his steroid meathead and fucking ruined everything.
But it was great because it built so much tension up. And then we got that incredible moment where he murdered that guy.
Yeah, because that was such a release of all of that tension for the episode.
Yeah.
It was wound really tight in 4, and then him just... Because they did slow-mo, but they also didn't do it all the whole time.
Yeah.
So it was really like... It felt graphic, even though we didn't see it necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joe, you even mentioned, like... the way it was shot. I remember you texting us saying how they mirrored what was it, the Civil War?
Yeah, when he's about to it looks like he's gonna kill Tony.
Yeah. That's right. Yes, because it's the same fate. Like he does the same thing with the shield and everything. And it was just so the brutality of all of that, you know, because the show's relatively quiet except for those big action set pieces.
Yeah,
so when you get that moment, you're just like, and then you see all the people with their phones.
And that final shot was just like really haunting, of just the blood on the shield as he's standing there, shot from below. Yep. And then cutting to Sam and Bucky's reaction, just like, this is like there's blood all over it. And like that's like you almost wish that like they hadn't ended there and had the fight right then, because like that cold open of like ending with Sam trying to wipe the blood off was just jeez.
Seeing Sam touch the blood itself was super morbid.
Yeah.
Because it's like he's feeling the literal blood and the cost of a Captain America existing, but it's also in a way like symbolically him like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to wipe the blood off of it and make this clean and better now.
But he also is feeling the weight of that because he feels indirectly responsible or directly responsible, I guess.
Because if he didn't give it back.
Yeah.
I think indirectly.
There's so much happening for Sam in that moment, and it was super powerful.
Yeah. For that reason, for a lot of reasons, 5 is probably the top for me because that opening really is amazing, and the rest of it is very much like the emotional climax of the series.
Yeah.
Where episode 6 is like, we're gonna do the superhero shit, and then we're gonna have like 5 different epilogues. But to open with them finally coming to blows over the shields, that little like Bucky, another callback to Civil War of Bucky throwing it on the ground next to Sam in like a little like, look what happened. And then the scene with Isaiah where you really get like how much he's been hurt by the country that Sam is looking for permission. In another way, like Sam existing for and through other people, like he's looking for someone to tell him what to do, like he would tell to somebody who came to him. But he has to ultimately make the decision for himself. And I really like laying out like all the issues, but Sam, I don't even think saying like I can fix it, but like I have to hope that something can be in some way better, and that if he can do anything to support that, he has to do that. And I even like, it's sort of like a similar comment to like what Black Panther was doing. This is what's going on in the outside world. Don't you have a responsibility to do something? The question of like, why would you do that after everything they've done? Sam saying that's all true, but it's not. I hope that it doesn't always have to be.
Yeah. It's not a reason to give up.
Yeah.
Right.
But also for those same reasons, like Sam's ending at the end of episode 6, he like the Senators just get like a finger wag, and like I really think like the Senators are like the kind of true villains here, where they created the Flagsmashers through their actions, and they just get like a little shame talk on the news, and then Sam's walking away and somebody says, "Oh, we got another Flag Smasher. You want to help us out?" And he's like, "You got it, buddy." And flies off to help.
I love that monologue that he gives.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was an amazing
It's very
speech.
powerful.
I just hate where and why and like how it's delivered. Like him standing in the street talking to 3 elected officials and finally giving them what for just feels like, I don't know, it just felt so weird. It felt so weird that that's how his ideals were going to be cast out into the world, like to show who he was and what he's about.
Well, if it makes it feel any better, like I feel like Sam would be that kind of character to talk and give a speech like that.
Yeah. I just feel like it would have been better suited, like, I don't know, like the MCU is used being in like a Senate deposition before, you know, like where somebody's sitting in front of like the room of senators having to explain themselves.
Yeah.
It might have been better suited there. I mean, John Walker gets his moment to tell everybody like, you fucking created me. How dare you?
Yeah.
You know, like I was only following the rules that you gave me because that's all I ever did with my life was follow them. And he kind of gives it to those senators at that point, you know, like, so for Sam's moment to be in the street, I guess maybe they're trying to give you like how he's different or how he's going to go different about it. Like he's not going to go up to the State House and talk about it with them. He's going to do it there. But I don't know. I just felt like it was such a weird delivery of his entire like reasoning for taking on the mantle was delivered to us via like a hot mic situation.
Yeah, but I also think that was kind of out of necessity for the plot. It was like it's gonna be then and there. Like, this is where we are. Like, we don't have time to like do another epilogue where it's like, and sometime later at the State House, right? And like as he's
that's
leaving,
a really
that's when
good
Sharon's
point.
walking in. But
It seems so unrealistic to me that all of the like I know they forced all of those characters to be there at the same time.
yeah,
but
the
like,
senators had just undergone a traumatic experience.
in what situation would that have been like? You can't speak to the realism because the fucking man flies, but it just seems like a really strange situation to have him somehow have this perfect audience at that moment to do that to on the street,
despite
where you
the
would
chaos.
never run into 3 senators at the same time ever.
I mean, unless you pulled them out of a truck that they were kidnapped in.
Right, but that's like they had to set up. All right, well, we need Sam to talk to them at the end in front of the news cameras.
Yeah.
How do we get them from A to B?
Yeah, but I didn't really have so much of an issue with the medium of it. I just wish there was a harder divide, I guess, by the end to say, like, I'm not your Captain America.
Right. When he said, this girl just died
Yeah.
trying to stop you, and nobody's even thought to ask why. That was when it was like...
Yeah.
So, like, Sam feels like he knows that girl because he feels her actual frustration. And he knows exactly where she's coming from because he's literally experiencing coming back from the blip himself. Somehow he has a unique way of understanding where everybody is emotionally, and that's something that only Steve ever also had.
Yeah. And he's like,
True.
he's the first to admit, like, her methods were wrong.
Right.
But he
Yeah.
recognizes as well that she wasn't offered anything else. Like, nobody
Right.
gave anybody there an option to advocate for themselves.
Yeah, even
They
on
were
like
just
a platform.
told this is what's happening.
Yeah. Now I'm retconning, but it would have been cool to see like Killmonger's message kind of get out there, and then have the Flagsmashers take it up in that respect.
The Flagsmashers weren't after the same thing as
necessarily
Killmonger, though.
the same, but when you think about political ideologies, sometimes an idea spirals into what then the Flagsmashers became, in a way.
What you're saying is essentially like Killmonger's message accompanied with the snap could
Right.
have...
Turns them into the Flagsmashers and radicalizes them in a way that they're like, no, we're just gonna fucking take what we need because we're sick of waiting for handouts for it, because I feel like they're largely ideologically lined up, Killmonger and the Flagsmashers.
This show also really benefited from us going through a global pandemic, I think, because that line
Yeah.
of like, you finally know what a common struggle is like, and that feeling of like people always saying like, oh, when things go back to normal, and like people who have suffered under normal say, why would we ever want that? Or like people who like, people who wouldn't be able to access an office job who can work remotely now or shit like that in our world, not in this world, but like,
Yeah.
Basically, you're saying like you understand where something like that could come from, like an idea
Yeah.
of frustration.
Because the Flagsmashers, in essence, to Joe's point, like what the new normal was.
Yeah.
right.
So then when the people all came back, it ruined everything for them. So like all of the restrictions being lifted now is where they're at in the blip coming back, and they're like, no, I don't want these waves of fucking people again.
my whole thing about that was like Sam was defending Karli to the end, despite Karli even threatening his sister. Like,
Yeah.
it just felt like very forced that Sam was like, no,
I
I
don't
need
think he
to...
ever even acknowledged to her that she did that.
No, he did.
Did he?
Yeah, he walks in, he's just like, I forget what he said exactly. But
Didn't
then
he say, like, you crossed a line or something?
Yeah,
Oh,
and the
yeah,
first
yeah,
thing
okay,
she
yeah,
says
when-
is like, "Sam, I would never hurt her," and he's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the
Right,
fuck
right.
you're gonna do. Like, don't.
Yeah. No, that's right, because that was after she told him to meet there and come alone.
Yeah.
Or she told his sister to tell him to meet there and come alone, and he brought Bucky.
Right.
Right. He does confront her about it, but he's really like,
I told you to come alone. I am alone. He doesn't count.
I feel like he's just he's trying. He was like, to Jordan, to your point earlier, he was really trying and putting on a lot of unnecessary responsibility on himself.
Yeah.
But I think
that's a good point.
in the end, in that speech, he really refines what his worldview is while tearing down those senators and what they've done. You know? Because he's like, I'm here trying to bring her to justice for what she's done, but you guys, we have to get to the root issue.
Yeah.
And that echoes a lot of the sentiment that everybody's heard for the last year about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Let's solve the problem at the bottom of it before we let it sprout again.
Yeah.
Like, we have to cut off and pull the roots out and salt the earth, please.
Yeah.
So overall, any final thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Or should I say Captain America and the Winter Soldier?
I like that, because at the end now it's Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a really effective show. Not only does Sam carry the mantle of Captain America well, but I feel like the show did the same thing for that set of films also. Underrated throughout the show, I felt like, was the relationship and the chemistry between Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. I feel like they have really, really good chemistry with one another, and especially in their therapy situation together. I thought that, like, the way that they were just snapping those remarks off felt like it wasn't necessarily scripted, or they just knew it so well and know each other so well that they're able to cut off when they know that the other one is about to speak. I really loved their chemistry throughout, and that was the thing that I probably enjoyed the most about it.
As far as I'm concerned, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is another strong entry into the MCU. I really liked the action beats, really liked the tension that they built up with John Walker between Sam and Bucky, and the disdain that they both had for him. I thought that was really, really well done. Villains not really working out for me as far as Karli goes. Very excited to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and interested to see where they go with that in the future. And I want more out of Bucky, because Bucky was my favorite character in the MCU, and I went into the show thinking that Bucky was going to be like, oh, this is going to be great. And Sam wound up being my favorite character in the whole goddamn thing. And I'm not even mad about it.
No.
But, like, so now I want maybe even a season 2 where we get Captain America and the White Wolf.
Oh, shit. He upgrades because he doesn't want to be called Winter Soldier anymore, which I would understand.
Their actually initial pitch was for that final slate to be Captain America and the White Wolf, but I think the studio intervened because it was like too cheesy for them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
How is it more cheesy than calling him Winter Soldier when he's no longer
I think they just
like,
haven't...
the whole thing is about him getting over it. How do you keep calling him
I think
that?
they just haven't made up their mind if they want to stick with branding him the White Wolf or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I love this for Sam Wilson. I thought it was a really great show of his character, and I did, like Yezi said, love the relationship between he and Bucky, even though like a lot of the dialogue was like trying to convince you that there wasn't a relationship there. But like it was nice to see them like together as friends in the end. I do think this series, it was pretty like low in the middle, and that kind of stems from it being more structured like a long movie than like a TV series. But overall, I think they did stick the landing. I am interested in like Thunderbolts and like the characters that they teased, or like Isaiah's grandson who's in Young Avengers, which is another Young Avenger we've gotten from the Disney series. I think they might have just planted too many seeds for characters without really giving them a satisfying endpoint in this series. They kind of just start them rolling and see where they go. But as far as like the main focus being Sam and Bucky, and I think Sam most of all, I was really happy with where they ended and how they told their story.
So let us know what you guys thought of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, currently streaming on Disney+. You could find us on all of the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever else, we're probably there. Find us at Pop Kannon with a K.
Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, be it Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, whatever they call that for Android, and Spotify, but also YouTube so you can see our glorious faces.
That's true. And alternatively, if you would like, you could find us individually. Jordan, can be found on Instagram and Twitter at JL24FPS.
I'm still Robert, and you can find me at Yesball on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm Joe. I am at Joe for Broke on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah.
And for Pop Kannon, this has been episode 56. Thank you for watching and or listening, and we will see you on the very next episode, with new episodes coming out every other Wednesday.